Hello, welcome to our series on Roman women. I'm Amanda Hart, the Roman Baths Manager, and in this series we're going to be exploring what evidence we have for Roman women in Bath. Today we're going to be talking about human remains. A really useful source of evidence for archaeologists are human remains, both the skeleton and the teeth. And new scientific techniques such as DNA analysis and isotopic analysis can tell us so much information about these people that were living in Roman cities. Laid out in front of me are the bones of a female. We know she was female from the shape of her bones. Women tended to be smaller, and they had particular features in their bones that we can look at to identify them. So, for example, if we look at the skull, you can see it's small and it's much rounder. And here, the brow bone above the eye socket is almost non-existent in a female. It protrudes much more in a male skeleton. If we look at the jawbone, women tended to have a much smaller, narrower chin, and it was rounded. And a female pelvis tended to be much wider to allow for childbirth. And this part of the pelvis, called the sciatic notch, was much wider in a female skeleton. We can also examine the teeth to find out how old the person was. So this female was aged between 26 and 45. We know she was an adult from the molar teeth that she has in her jaw, but we can also tell from how much wear is on the teeth how old she was likely to be. So it's probable that we are looking at a woman of roughly 30 years of age. This female was found during excavations in 1999 by the Bath Archaeological Trust. She was found buried in what must have been a coffin because the nails survive even though the wood doesn't. She was discovered in St Swithin's Yard in the Walcott area of Bath, and she was found buried next to another individual who was male. Now, DNA analysis was done on her teeth, and that tells us that she was from Northern Europe, possibly Scandinavia, or more likely from Britain, so she could have been local. But this also tells us that she wasn't related to the man buried next to her, because his DNA tells us that he came from a hot climate, possibly North Africa or even Syria. Isotopic analysis is measuring the different chemical elements in your teeth. What that means is rainwater that falls on certain types of rock. As it filters through the rock, it will then gather up those minerals into the water. So when you drink the water, that will be absorbed into your teeth. And then scientists can do isotope analysis on oxygen levels in your teeth. And that will tell us where somebody has come from. Lead isotopic analysis confirms that she came from either Scandinavia or from Britain. In addition, isotopic analysis was done using collagen from her bones to determine her diet. This told us that she had a fairly standard Roman diet, and 10 to 20% of her protein intake came from fish. So the information about her diet is telling us that she wasn't really having a rich diet, so she wasn't really very wealthy, but she wasn't very poor either. She was actually found buried inside the walls of a building that once would have been a factory. Now that's unusual because mostly Romans were buried in cemeteries outside of the walls of the city. It would seem that she was buried in the later Roman period because that's when some burials were actually brought inside the city walls. We don't know how she died, but we do know that at some point in her life, she suffered severe trauma to her left leg. Here you can see where the leg was broken, but it hasn't healed in alignment. So that would have caused her quite a lot of pain. And what it meant is that where it hasn't fused together properly, her left leg would have been shorter than her right leg, causing her to have problems with her posture. So presuming she died in her 30s, that would seem young for us today. But given that most Romans only lived to be in their 40s, that wouldn't have been unusual in Roman times. So we know she was living here, but was she born here? Or did she come into Bath? And what brought her here? Was it for work? Did she marry and come here? Or was she coming here to use the bathing complex to try and heal her injured leg?